All right, so I see we're 3 after, so I'm going to go ahead and get us started. So thank you everyone for joining us. This is Cal Mahoney with Suppliers Partnership. Pleased to welcome you to our webinar today on SP's Pollinator Project Challenge. Before we get into our content, I just want to cover a couple introductory items here. So first, this is set up as a webinar, so would ask that you please use the Q&A window on your Zoom screen there to ask any questions of the presenters as we go through this. We are recording this and we'll send out a copy of the slides and a link to that presentation likely later in this week so that you can share that with others on your team who may find it of interest. So to set the context here, for those that may not be aware, Suppliers Partnership for the Environment is an industry organization bringing automakers and their suppliers together to work on shared environmental and sustainability goals for the industry. And the group has been around for 20 years now, building those collaborations around environmental sustainability. But as we look to the future and as we look to our members' goals for 2030 and beyond, we're seeing a real acceleration in terms of the ambition of those commitments and the scope of those commitments toward real positive environmental impact throughout the value chain. And so as members of SP, really we're trying to bring companies together to work together on those long-term commitments to scale those ambitions and to cascade those best practices up and down the supply chain. And as we do that, we're looking across a wide range of environmental sustainability goals in the industry, from carbon neutrality, sustainable materials, water stewardship. But for today's conversation, really want to focus in one area in particular around biodiversity and the use of nature-based solutions on automotive lands. So very pleased to have Kevin Butt, SP's chairman from Toyota Motor North America, joining us, Sam Qureshi with Waste Management Sustainability Services, and one of SP's key partners in this program, Sara Cook with the Wildlife Habitat Council, to share more about the work that they're doing on pollinators and opportunities for other companies in the automotive industry to get involved. So with that, I'd like to introduce Sam Qureshi to get us started here.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a good Wednesday. This is a project we started a few years ago, and it's very exciting. A lot of companies have joined, and we had a bit of a break because of COVID, and we're hoping that with that part of our history, kind of in the back view mirror, we can all look forward and get reintroduced to the importance of pollinators in society. Of course, we're hearing a lot of things about climate change, and pollinators are one of those species that are very directly impacted by that. As an auto industry, we are uniquely positioned because of our geography to support pollinators, and specifically the monarch butterfly. You look at the monarch butterfly, it makes a remarkable migration through the heart of the auto industry, up to 3,000 miles from northeastern United States and southeastern Canada to the mountains and forests of central Mexico, where they hibernate during the winter. And so as we looked at the criticality of this, we really wanted to bring our teams together. And SP's vision is to work together as an industry. Yes, we are competitors on some levels, but there's many things that we can all agree on and work towards a betterment of. And so one of those is the Pollinator Project that Suppliers Partnership has brought forward, and then Kevin and I have been trying to support that through our efforts as well. And the idea is really to bring together not only employees and other stakeholders, but it's the entire industry to support this effort. So that's our vision, is to demonstrate leadership in the industry, and then providing a platform for the our customers, our employees, to engage in something much bigger than ourselves. Kellen, back to you.
Great, thank you, Sam. And so Sam, I think you made the points here on this slide as well. But just to reinforce, right, why this is important and why the group decided to go in this direction. Really looking at the scale of the automotive industry's manufacturing footprint here in North America, and the opportunity to use those lands to really make a meaningful change for the industry. So with that, I want to move on to this slide covering where we've been today. And Sam or Kevin, I'll leave it to you here to speak to some of the progress that's been made already.
Sorry, I had muted myself apparently, or you muted me, Kellen, I'm not sure, but I just want to add a little color commentary to why we're here. I think it's really important. I often get asked a lot of times from people, why are you as an automotive manufacturing company so interested in this biodiversity issue? Well, I think collectively, as this project was envisioned, how great it would be if we had the automotive industry collectively, along with the supply base, joined in an effort that could conserve acres, not just small pieces of here and there, but when they all added up to acres of great new pollinator space. That's when we begin making changes at scale. And that's when we can see those impacts that really make a difference. And, really encouraging us as this group to be able to, collectively be able to say, look, we've taken this to heart. And, as you can see on this particular slide, we've got 200 plus pollinator projects, 2,500 plus acres of habitat, and 100 plus projects on WHC certified sites. That to me is where we're starting to begin making those changes at the scale we're talking about, right? Where you can actually see impacts to conservation take place. And that's to me what is really exciting about this, and the work with us as a group to be able to do this. And I really am hoping, as Sam said earlier, COVID, as with everything else, it kind of put a slowdown on things, but hopefully we can kick this off with some new projects and more space and more habitat that we can actually put into this space. So thanks for allowing me that bit of time there.
Perfect. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Sam, for setting the context really of why we're focused on this project and what's happened so far. So with that, I'd like to introduce Sara Cook with the Wildlife Habitat Council, who, as I mentioned, is one of SP's key partners in this space, to talk a bit more about WHC and some of the resources that you have available to help companies get started here.
Yeah, thanks, Kellen, and thanks, Kevin and Sam. We have a long-time partnership with SP as well as Toyota and Waste Management, so we're really pleased to be here and we appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about who we are and how we're working with the automotive supply chain. SP has so generously developed over the several decades now. So WHC, for those of you who don't know, is a nonprofit that helps companies help nature. So our primary audience is corporations that have land holdings and assets and essentially capacity to do projects that benefit nature. We'll come back to that in a minute, but I wanted to share this slide because it kind of gives you a cross section of where we work. And we work from kind of the extractives realm straight through to the manufacturing realm, of course, logistics and transportation, and then down to where Sam sits in waste management. And we pretty much work that model based on what we call the business case for nature. And it essentially involves 16 drivers for business. So Kellen, if you want to switch slides here, we'll talk a little bit about how WHC frames our collaboration, not just with SP, but with distinct companies. And we look at the context of how nature can be a lever for success across operations, whether it's for social license to operate, which is always a trend in terms of how we collaborate with companies, moving through to corporate citizenship, where many of us are now starting to see increased interest from stakeholders, not only those community stakeholders, but financial stakeholders as well, related to reporting, rating, and disclosures. And then, of course, we're also interested in helping companies implement these activities to offset climate change issues, to help with land management decision-making. And as I'll talk in a minute, kind of focused on nature-based solutions for pollution prevention, climate resilience, and community uplift. Next slide. And so the way that we work with companies and with SP, incidentally, is we kind of work at 3 levels. We work at the strategic level, where we're really trying to help companies frame the conversation around nature and specifically biodiversity action, similar to what SP is doing around pollinators and the Monarch theme, in a way that translates both up and down the enterprise, but also is actionable. So you can facilitate through our tactical expertise and our support resources, which we'll go through, can implement these projects. And then Kevin already alluded to our recognition model, which is a companion piece to the data that SP is collecting, where we actually have biodiversity, habitat, and education standards that companies can earn third-party credibility and recognition for using our model. And so we call that our grassroots model. That's where your teams are celebrated, recognized, and then the data that comes out of those programs gets fed into things like SP's Pollinator Pledge, as well as other metrics and reporting structures that you may have at your company. Next slide. So why is nature important and why are we here today? I just want to echo some of the comments that the other panelists have made here, but I want to punctuate it with a few key things. So the World Economic Forum and others are recognizing that biodiversity in nature is actually one of the top 3 global risks in severity. So what that means is investors are taking notice. So much so that the Financial Times just published, I think it was on the 19th or the 20th, an article with the tagline that species loss is now seen as a problem as big as climate change. And so what we're really trying to do through our work with the Pollinator Pledge is to help amplify and enable action that can contribute to mitigating biodiversity loss, in this case, pollinators and specifically the monarch. But as you can see, whether it's a medium-term global risk or a long-term global risk, biodiversity is hitting up there alongside extreme weather, which we're experiencing for those of us on the East Coast of the US, and climate action failures and climate change. So it's really becoming counterintuitive to ignore nature as a need across businesses. Next slide, please. And so how does that kind of roll up into our partnership for success here at SP? So we've been working for almost 5 years now to kind of come up with, through this Pollinator Pledge, a policy and a practice regime where we can work together as an industry to kind of provide high-level resources and materials, as well as kind of weave these stories together as the panelists and Kellen have mentioned. And I do want to echo what Kevin said about the impact that the SP is having. I want to add a few pieces of information. So our team did an analysis of all of the auto sector programs we have within our recognition model. And there's actually 4,520 acres in conservation total. That includes pollinators, wetlands, grasslands, forested lands, and even education programs. So the number that Kevin gave you on the land area impact for pollinators, double that number for total environmental and nature impact. And that's something that just in the last few years, we've seen an increase in this industry, and want to celebrate everyone on here. And of course, we're focused on the Pollinator Pledge, but another project that we're working on with SP is a US EPA Region 4 funded grant reviewing how nature can be a lever when looking at site-wide pollution reduction strategies, and then analyzing those strategies against co-benefits like biodiversity uplift. So one of the things we try to do with SP and the members of SP is really kind of get into that policy and practice, and that falls into our strategic service and kind of strategic collaboration effort. And then from an action-oriented perspective, and the primary reason we're here today is to talk about how we can support you as signees of the pledge, and then otherwise to enable pollinator action on the ground that actually can be measured and rolled up into these results. And then, of course, we're here as a partner of SP to offer company and site-specific support. I want to just say that, but the toolkit is our primary vehicle for doing that. So next slide. What we did when we first started collaborating with SP is we developed a custom design tool to advance SP members towards this shared goal. So while a Monarch might be something you focus on, in one area, there's also bats, there's other insects, there's of course bees, native and honeybees. And what we're trying to do is enable teams to create measurable, scalable, and industry-leading practices around pollinator support. So we developed this guide, next slide, that's intended to be piecemeal but usable. So the idea is that if you've never thought about a project before, we can help you from the top with design and selecting the right project for your resources, for your teams, and for your location. Everything we want to help you do should be locally relevant and accessible to your employees and easy to implement, both from a cost perspective, but also because our mission is every act of conservation matters. So we want to make sure that everyone who participates can access this and support the monitoring and maintenance of these projects and even stakeholder engagement if needed. So the guide is broken up into sections, and depending on where your comfort is, you either start fresh from the very beginning, or let's say you have a project on the ground, but you want to do more. There's other steps that we've introduced in that guide to help you do that. And then again, it goes without saying, if you still need more support, just please reach out to us and we'll help facilitate that conversation in a way that's locally relevant and contextually supports your business needs. Next slide. And then I did put some live links in this slide. So if you want to visit, we've published a number of materials, thanks to the generous support of our partners, on our website to access these materials. And we have an entire section on pollinators, whether you're looking at pollinators from a grassland perspective or specific species like a bat. So what we've done is we've kind of consolidated some really good resources here that again allow for accessibility at scale globally or in North America along your North American footprint. And then, we've also included a few resources for reviewing and learning more about pollinators and how you can do them in certain regional contexts, like, for example, the Southeast. And WHC doesn't work in a vacuum. We work with Suppliers Partnership, but we also work with other pollinator organizations like Monarch Joint Venture, Pollinator Partnership, Xerces Society, et cetera. So those organizations, we can help facilitate those relationships. And of course, we work collaboratively with our partners in conservation to make sure that the materials we produce are scientifically rigorous, accurate, and again, accessible so that success can happen at the site level. And we're really, really proud to be part of this initiative at SP. Thanks, Kellen.
Excellent. Thank you, Sarah, for going over the tools there and the process for working with SP and WHC together. It's really helpful. So here, we'd like to introduce just a couple quick sort of case examples of how companies are actually doing this. So first, Sam, if I could come back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Kellen, and thank you, Sarah, for that overview. I think it's important to, before I get started on this, it's important to recognize that while we want to go to a scalable project, but there's a place you have to take that first step. And I would encourage everyone in the audience to really seriously consider making this a project, get started, and then you can scale it, up from there. Waste management has a long history of being in conservation projects. We've got 84 projects in the works right now. 78 of them are WHC certified, and there are about 80 pollinator projects that are also current and active. Bucks County landfill is just north of Philadelphia, and in 2013, we because of the need for pollinator protection, we launched an intergenerational project. And what that means is basically we had young school kids, we had senior citizens, everyone within the community got involved And this started off with about an acre, and then we subdivided that into different portions. This project is registered on the National Pollinator Network Million Pollinator Challenge. It's received certification from many organizations, including the North American Butterfly Association, and is qualified as a Penn State pollinator-friendly garden and a Monarch way station. In 2017 and in 2020, this project received gold certification from the International Wildlife Habitat Council, and in both years it received awards for landscape and pollinator projects. One of the highlights of this project is the annual Monarch Watch tagging project, where they actually capture the monarchs. And the monarch butterfly, I don't know if anyone, I didn't know this until I looked at some data. Typical monarch butterfly weighs about if you look at a $50, the coin that used to be in circulation, it's about that weight, and the wingspan is about 4 inches. So while they're delicate creatures, they're certainly fairly hardy when it comes to tagging. And so this is an annual event. And so since our first event in 2014 and through 2021, we've tagged and released 621 monarch butterflies. And what happens is you can actually follow these butterflies as they go through their migration paths. As I mentioned, some of these butterflies travel over 3,000 miles, and we've been able to observe their migration and actually how they end up from the northern North America to going back into the mountains of Mexico. So this is a pretty neat project. And so as one of the most impacted populations by climate change, as I mentioned before, and their biodiversity, this project provides meaningful and sustainable employee and community engagement and empowers participants to become true champions for pollinators and monarch butterflies. And I hope you'll join many other SP members that have already started projects and take on the Pollinator Pledge and Challenge. Thanks so much for your time.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sam. And moving over to Kevin, we have got another example here from Toyota.
Yeah, thanks, Kellen. Just briefly here, this is a nice picture from the Texas facility, and just like Sam, our team members built and enjoy this particular location. This is a 76 plus or minus acre native grassland managed to support native wildlife, and then there's a pollinator, particular species in a 0.7 acre landscape pollinator garden, just for this area that will exclude that invasive feral hog. As of those that might know about feral hogs, they will destroy a large piece of acreage in a quick amount of time. So this has been a great project, and it also provides some educational opportunities for the local community that they, through Earth Day events and other activities throughout the year, they bring folks in to be able to learn from this. The other piece I'd like to just add to this is last year, Toyota committed to funding and development of 15,000 additional acres of new pollinator gardens. I mean, we feel that strongly about this. We will continue in that process to add more and more acres of new pollinator space because we firmly believe that the impacts that pollinators have on our environment and our food sources are critical. And so we want to help set the tone that, the more, the better in this space. So I think that's another, as we say, as we do this at scale, the bigger impacts we'll have. So the last thing I'll talk about here is at each of our manufacturing sites, there's each of those facilities have identified an indicator species, a species of whether it's bird, bat, duck, bee, whatever, that they are going to take in particular attention to. And each team member and the team members that work with us all participate in helping to monitor and measure the progress towards improvement of those ecosystems that allow that particular species to thrive. So, all this works together. It's all about team member education. We're hoping that what they learn at Toyota and on our lands, they can take home and share with not only their family, but their neighbors as they begin the process of hopefully completing a pollinator garden space in their own backyard. So thank you for that time. And Kellen, back to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Kevin. Really impressive to see both what you and Waste Management have done here. And Kevin, if I'm not mistaken, I believe you won a national Monarch recognition for some of the work you've done here. So
yes, thank you, Kellen, for bringing that up.
So yeah, great to see that recognition, that progress. So from here, would like to just go over really the 3-step process for companies to get involved in this challenge. And then after we do that, we'll have a bit of time for questions. If you have any questions, please feel free to throw them in the Q&A box there. But really, as Kevin, Sarah, Sam said, the first step is just to make that commitment to sign up and say, we want to take on the challenge of implementing a pollinator project at one or more of our sites. And so you'll get this link here to sign up for that challenge, and we encourage everybody to consider doing that. Whether you already have a pollinator project and you want to grow that or scale that to new sites, or whether it's your first time. I think the one key thing here, as is highlighted at the bottom, we understand that not every project will be successful. So really we're asking that you commit to try it and let us know how you do. And if you run into challenges, as was shown by Sarah, right, there's a number of resources here to help you and guide you through that process. Once a company has made that commitment, as Sarah highlighted, we have a number of tools to help sort of guide you through this process step by step. So the second step here, we encourage everybody to download that pollinator toolkit. Start as it suggests in terms of scoping out your objectives, working to find locally appropriate solutions. And I think you'll find that toolkit really guides you step by step throughout that process. And then, once you've done that, we are asking companies, to come back and tell us, how you did. So as Kevin, said in the beginning, when we begin to pull all this data together, when we begin to see what each company is doing, these projects on an individual basis are certainly meaningful, but as we bring them together collectively, I think there's really an opportunity here to show a very large scale impact. And so we really encourage you, if you're already doing pollinator work on your sites and you haven't told us about it, please use this opportunity to do so. We love to highlight these case studies as we did today. There's ways that SP will continue to do that through our website, through our meetings. And so please do, as you go out and do these projects, please come back and tell us about it. And so again, you'll get the link here in the follow-up materials with a simple form where we ask companies to report on what they've done. And for this current calendar year, asking that everybody, get their data into us by January 15th of next year so that we can really, pull that data together and show the impact of what everyone has done over the last year. So, with that, I'd like to turn back, to Kevin or Sam for any, final words that you might want to give here in terms of, this challenge and encouraging folks to take the next step.
Well, the only thing that I'll add to this conversation is, don't worry about how big a space that you get started with. It doesn't have to be 100 acres. It doesn't have to be 50 acres. Just whatever space that you have to get started and get that first shovel in the ground, I think is very important. And then watch it as it grows, and hopefully monitor it and watch the benefits of that. And to steal the phrase that comes from WAC, every act of conservation matters. So, each project, although it may not be the biggest one, it will add value. And I think we need to, that's what we're looking for here as well.
Yeah, and I would just echo what Kevin has always so eloquently laid out. It doesn't have to be a huge project. I think it's important that every one of us as members just steps up and be counted, right? And what's remarkable about this is that if somebody takes the initiative, the rank and file employees, everyone just takes ownership of it, and it becomes such a joy. And that yeah, we all have jobs, day jobs, but this is something we're doing for the environment, for the next generations. It really can become very, very exciting, and it just pumps everybody up in the organization. So again, would really appreciate, I know everyone's busy. If you could give some kind of attention to this, and please join us in this very important project.
Just echo that, we've recognized and counted container plantings for these exercises. So if you can run to your local hardware store, grab some native pollinator plants. If you need help, let us know. We can help integrate those into this action. So, it's the aggregate that's been pointed out by others on this call that matters. And we really are intending to drive some value, not just for the wildlife, but for the employees of these facilities and around us. I think we all learned in the pandemic that having a positive interaction with nature can be quite soothing and healthy. And so something as simple as having a nice space that people care about and can make observations of wildlife in and around the workplace can make a huge difference in our day-to-day lives. And we are here to help and encourage the process. And again, we thank you for considering these activities.
Great, thank you all. So we've got time for a couple questions here. Sarah, there's a question that came in while you were speaking earlier about nature-based solutions. Has work been done to quantify the co-benefits from a carbon perspective of these projects?
Excellent question. So yes, it's happening in a number of spaces, some of which WHC deals with directly. Other experts who are much more equipped to do that are looking at that. So there's a couple of things in our project with Region 4 EPA that we're doing research on, and that's a number of different nature-based solutions, not just grassland restoration for pollinators or just planting trees. It's also wetlands and so on. And we're looking at these ecological features from soil to plant biota and how they can trap and store carbon for a period of time. And the U.S. Forest Service and Davey Tree Institute has a really nice tree model that's available. It's called iTree, that we often reference because Davey Tree is a partner of ours. And so if you're planting trees or woody plants, you can actually model over time the expected carbon benefit. There's a number of organizations like Bee Carbon, which is a group out of Texas, studying soil carbon. Please guys note that soil is not all the same. It's an organism in some cases. And so being able to account for soil carbon as a benefit in nature-based solutions really has to do with the makeup of that soil. So there's a lot of science that's still needed on that in terms of being able to kind of stack that benefit on a traditional carbon methodology. And then of course you have your large scale restoration efforts. But one connection for all those activities back to pollinators is a habitat that's vanishing in North America is open prairie. And prairies are essential to not just wildlife, but healthy watersheds. Healthy cultures and so on. And so you can impact not only the pollinators who visit these plants, but also the soil health. You can reflect North America's natural heritage by planting these native species. So there's so many other avenues of co-benefits that we're exploring. All of those materials will be published and are in the state of publication on our website, and through SP, we'll be delivering a lot of the research on these subjects, so stay tuned for that. But yes, there is a lot of science behind how different nature-based solutions can contribute to carbon storage and sequestration. I wish I could be more specific, we don't have time.
Great, thank you, Sarah. So there's another question here. How important is it to have a project certified, and how does that process work?
So for the SP Pollinator Pledge, and Kevin, Sam, I'll let you weigh in here. It's not required. One thing that WHC would like to have is as many of these projects certified as possible, because we have a third-party verification. So we actually have third parties and analyze the project against our standard. So what that means is you can take that metric or the result or the outcome and use that to stand up your sustainability programming, and use that to communicate either through your CSR reporting or your employee recognition, or even, as we're doing now, linking to other reporting frameworks and aligning with like TNFD, for example. If that's a significant element of what you do, I encourage certification because it is third-party verified. It's not required to be a participant in the Pollinator Pledge. I mean, I don't want to undersell it. I mean, obviously I want as many projects certified as possible, but it's not a barrier to entry. Just so everyone knows, there is a fee to be certified, but because Suppliers Partnership is our partner, we offer that fee at a member rate, even for companies who are not members of ours. The fee is not to WHC, it's actually to our third-party reviewers because they are professionals. So it is not a, again, we want a degree of separation from that recognition. But for the purposes of this effort too, what that allows WHC to do is pull the data off of our system and share it with SP on your behalf. So we do that for Waste Management, General Motors, Stellantis, and Toyota already. And that saves you a step. You don't have to transfer that data to Kellen. It's one thing we can do directly. But again, I'll let others weigh in on that.
Yeah, I'll just echo that. I mean, it's not a requirement for entry. What it is, and we in Toyota, I think we have 14, 15 sites. We don't have as many sites as Waste Management, but we certainly encourage that from a third-party validation standpoint, because we use it as a part of our North American environmental reporting, and we want it to be validated as we do that. So again, but it's not a requirement, and I encourage you not to even think about that. If that's a sticking point for you, don't worry about it. Just get that shovel in the ground and get started, and we'll see what happens from there.
Great, thank you. Sam, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, really, again, just echoing what both Sarah and Kevin mentioned, that it's not a requirement, and really to highlight that please don't even think about that at this point, right? Once you get started and you scale it, and then you get to a point where you actually want to, make this part of your ESG reporting or other reporting, and you'd like to have an audit trail and third-party verification, then it becomes really, really important. But the important thing at this point is just get started. Just do it. Okay.
Great. So I've got a question here from a company where they primarily lease the land where they operate. Do any of you have suggestions about ways to do these kinds of projects when you don't own the land where you're operating?
I mean, Sarah, I'm sure Sarah's seen a lot of this out there, but one of the ways that we approach that is, again, it doesn't have to be shovels in the ground. It can be above ground plantings or removable beds as well, right? So you can do whatever you would like to do there that would add that small space of large space of how much above ground beds you'd like to put in. So yeah, it's not a showstopper. Again, you get the same enjoyment, you get the same benefits, the same conservation benefits from that. So yeah, I would encourage that. We have a couple of properties that we lease that we have utilized for and still done this type of work. So
Great.
actually, we have a lot of properties that we lease over, but I don't want to get into all that.
We can help coordinate too. I mean, a lot of times facilities and owner operator your landlords are interested in things like native vegetation for their low water usage and others. So there's ways that we can work with that. We've developed even guidance and support materials to facilitate those conversations in WHC's experience. And just so you know, as Kevin and Sam pointed out, these can be temporary efforts, and they can be centered on employee education as well. So if you can't replant your entire entryway because there are 6 or 7 lacees in this complex, but you can have a demonstration above ground container, maybe with a little sign, and do some employee or building education, you can also have an impact on awareness around this significance of supporting pollinators. And again, in addition to the toolkit that we designed for implementation in shovel-worthy projects, from containers to large-scale grassland restoration, we also have some ready-made guides for education and employee awareness driving activities. So for those of you who aren't sure how to wrap your heads around this, that might be a good first step. And we have stuff that's ready for you to consume and use. So please reach out to me for those materials.
Excellent, thank you. So I'll just ask one more question here before we wrap this up. So this person saying they're considering a walking path for employees and incorporating pollinator gardens, rain gardens, bat boxes, etc. Has anyone, on the panel here had experience managing employees who may be allergic to bees, or, how did you manage, locating that garden at your facility?
I guess I'll jump in here, but yes, we have. I mean, depending on which facility we're talking about, some of ours are very remote from the operations, and others are not, including, planting of those native species directly in front of our corporate headquarters building, right? So, we have posted education about those and the impacts of that, but to date, we've not had any real issues with that. So just like anything else, awareness is the key, right? Of making sure people are aware of what's going on and the correct signage.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you, again, Kevin, Sarah, and Sam for sharing your experience here and encouraging and motivating others to take on this challenge. So, as I said, we'll be sending out a link to the pollinator commitment and the resources that Sarah shared here, and would encourage you all to consider taking on this commitment, but also consider cascading it to others within your own value chain. We'd love to see as many companies in the automotive supply chain as possible, get this information and take this pledge. It doesn't have to be limited to, a large OEM, a large supplier. I think it's open to anybody, and that, as Sarah said, it's very scalable, right? So please, take a look at those materials, consider signing up for the pledge, and please do report back to us on what you've done. And so with that, want to thank you again, for joining us, and thank you, Kevin, Sarah, and Sam. Really appreciate your time today. But thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of the
Appreciate
day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.